to another episode of Blind Insight. A few more weeks have rolled by, but plenty has happened, and we'll be discussing some of that in an hour. But of course, there's only so much you can talk about in an hour. But I'm Simon Hill. I'm joined by Billy Spakeman. How are we doing?
All right, not too bad.
We are actually recording this on Easter Sunday, so that's how dedicated we are.
We are, yeah. We're in on Easter Sunday. All our Easter eggs will be gone by the time we get back.
I've reached that stage in my life where because I'm not blessed with a gang of my own kids or nieces or nephews or whatever. I've got no excuse, so I just have to buy one for myself. So I've got.
Well, you don't have to buy one.
Well, I don't actually know, but no, I do enjoy an Easter egg. I must admit. So I've treated myself to one, and I've got it in the fridge at home.
I couldn't believe the other day that Toblerone are discontinuing the dark chocolate.
Are they?
After 60 years, they're discontinuing it. I don't know whether it's ethically not right or whatever. But I couldn't imagine a world being without dark chocolate, to be honest.
Well, not everybody, but I mean, I've never known. I suppose it tends to be a bit more expensive generally, doesn't it? But yeah, that's a weird one.
Yeah. And it's better for you.
Yeah, yes,
apparently, from a health point. Yeah, but I think it was in the weekend paper to say that Toblerone was announced. Sadly, they have announced. Well, if it's sadly, why have they done it? Announced after a run of over 6 decades, they will be discontinuing the dark chocolate Toblerone imminently. So everybody now will have it discounted on the shelves, the dark chocolate Toblerone.
Oh, so go out and
buy it.
Yeah.
Change their mind. Store it.
Yeah. Or change their mind. But so if you're happy Easter to you if you celebrate it. I mean, or whether you believe in the religious side of it, or you just like to enjoy the chocolate side of it, or you tremble at the thought of having to entertain your kids for 2 weeks. Anyway, so what we're going to talk about, we've got VE Day coming up. That's come around 80 years. We obviously, some of you hopefully heard our show on D-Day last year, so we've come around to the 80th anniversary of VE Day, so we'll talk about that for a little bit, because I think if you told a lot of people back then what would happen over the next 80 years, they would have probably thought surely not. But such are humans. But so we'll talk about that a bit. Also, a couple of things that have caught my eye in the news. One of them relating to the artificial intelligence revolution that we keep being told is going to make things better for us, which we talked about last time. And we've got the Birmingham dustbin saga keeps rolling on, it seems, with no end in sight. I mean, the army having to come in to clear up your rubbish. I mean, really, is that where we've come to? I've one story that really jumped out at me, and I thought this has to be done under the plea to combat common sense. So we'll throw that in later on, but I'll let you keep you guessing on that one. But the fact that Easter isn't always on the same day every year, which puzzles me, because surely if something's marking an event, then that event happened on a certain date. But that's always been.
Yeah, it is puzzling, that is, because some years it's really early, and it's quite late this year, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, a couple of these songs are going to the end of March, so yeah. It can span. It seems literally a whole month, end of March to end of April. So. Yeah, but obviously I could look it up, but I've never got round to it. But there we are. That's that. So VE Day, yeah. So 80 years, a lot's happened, and it is going to be marked, which of course is only fair, only right. There has unfortunately been some chat about the veterans that are left not being assisted to get to remembrance services or gatherings, which it just gets boring, to be honest. I mean, why and how does it even become an issue? I mean, it's just ridiculous. But hopefully everybody gets to their where they want to get to, and I mean, I'm sure there'll be other things going on and things, but I just hope, as always with these things, it doesn't get taken over as an opportunity for, you know, advertising, promoting, marketing, blah blah blah, and it is remembered for what it's meant to be for. Because although there aren't too many, or less and less people left that were actually there on the day, it doesn't mean that the lessons that we thought we'd learnt from 5 years of horrific war, unfortunately don't seem to have been heeded, because we've still been warring over one thing or another ever since, haven't we, to be honest?
Always been in a mess. And it would seem to be in a bigger mess now. Yeah, it does. And then it seems, I mean, I know it is VE Day and all that, but it seems quite low profile. I mean, it's not far away, and yet I know on the news it'll say, oh, yeah, and the Prime Minister wants everybody to have a street party and that. Well, look, they'll all be at work, I suppose. And there's no national holiday. There's no acknowledging it that way, is there? But it seems very low-key, and it sort of gets less every year, I think, really.
Yeah, and I mean, we sort of touched on this last year on D-Day, didn't we? But I suppose, people argue, well, it's inevitable because as the people who were there pass on and the voice becomes quieter, but it's just funny that, given the things that we make such a big fuss of, such as Christmas, such as, Halloween, such as, whatever, all of that stuff, yet that we don't make such a thing of, what literally was fighting for freedom, life and death, democracy, all these things that we bang on about. But this was the foundation of what allowed it to continue, and and obviously, as it turned out, it wasn't by any means to be the end of the story, and we don't make. I don't know. It's like I'd be interested to know actually how other countries are going to mark it and remember it.
That would be interesting, really, because it just seems to be almost like a token gesture in a way.
Better do something.
Whereas it should be much more like. In terms of politics, it's like, well, we'll mention it because then everybody will think we're great and we've acknowledged it, but not actually do anything for it, and it is a real shame. But I think it just runs through the way we acknowledge servicemen and women anyway. The people that they serve, they give up the time, they fight for whatever they're told to fight for, really, because that's why they've joined. And yet afterwards, if anything goes wrong or they leave the Army or the Navy or the Air Force, then there's very little done for them. I know a load of ex-servicemen, and they all just feel neglected. And also, they sort of fight for a cause and then nothing materialises from the fight, and they think, well, what did we go for? It was our job, and we understand we've signed up to do that job, but nothing's changed, so what have we gone for? Yeah.
But no, I mean, again, and I don't think that there won't be anything like it again, because I mean, they're on about, of course, there's one of the big arguments now is that how our armed forces have been allowed to decline, and we seem to have this idea that we're better than we actually are, because anybody that's actually involved keeps telling us no, we're not.
No.
if we're needed tomorrow, we are not ready.
Yeah.
And so we've been very naive, and something that we've kept ignoring. I mean, it's funny. It always amazes me because people want us to get involved in any sort of fracas develops anywhere in the world. People want us to get involved, whether it was just with a strongly worded phone call. I don't quite know what they expect us to do half the time, but we're just not in any position whatsoever to get involved in and show any strength, because we're not strong anymore, and it's just.
Yeah. But I think we do. I mean, I do think. And it's not a criticism. I think it's just a natural progression of our culture that we lived on the back of both world wars for a long time, or we live on the back. It's like, oh well, we won a war. Well, so what? It's 50 years on now, and that's not decrying all the great work that they did. But you can't live the present just because of what happened in the past. It can influence what you've done, but I think we sort of think, well, everybody should think we're brilliant because we won a war, and it's totally it's a different world.
Well, the irony is that you know that as soon as the war ended, what that started was the process of the breakup of what was left of the British Empire. So
Yeah.
so all these and yes, there's all sorts of debates that are still going on now as to the rights or wrongs of it all. But at the end of the day, we weren't the only country to have an empire, number one. But secondly, countries wanted independence and they got it. And and whether they've then gone on and made a success of that is up for debate. But the strength, the reason we had the resources to call on, from that's the reason that the likes of the Australians and the New Zealanders, the Indians, you name it. That's why they fought on our side. Number one, there wasn't really because they were under the British Empire. So whether they would have chosen to do it as independent nations, we'll never know. But they since that all changed, then the strength or influence that we had went with it, and ever since then, we seem to always be on the involved in things one way or another, or good old Britain getting involved. But we, without being, if you ask me, I think to think that we're respected anymore is kidding ourselves.
Yeah, you're probably right. Again, that's sort of the case of you're living on past glories, and we are, but everybody else is like thinking, well, hang on a minute, you can't keep throwing that in our faces that you've won a war because, the climate has changed, the cultural systems of countries have changed, the way they're ruled has changed, the world is in a totally different place. So it's no point shouting up, oh well, yeah, we'll do it because we won a war. It don't rub now, does it really? And that's probably one of the reasons why you should celebrate the people who did give up their lives and acknowledge that, because that was a time then and this is a time now, and that acknowledgement needs to be made, but you can't live off the back of it for the rest of humanity, really.
Well, the point is that the amount of the numbers of people and the difference is now, like I said, that we hopefully it'll never happen, but the fact was that back then you had so-called normal people being pulled out of their day jobs and suddenly becoming part of the military effort, and so it wasn't a professional army in inverted commas. It was an army that was literally anyone that was fit enough and able enough and had to contribute, and in a way, the positives that sort of, I mean, I look around now and I think if that was required for God forbid any reason now, we'd stand no chance.
No.
There's no way in today's society you'd get people rushing out to, get in the factories or do whatever was needed to do, giving up throwing their pots and pans into the metal supplies and all this stuff that went on. And I think we've just, I think the sad thing is that because the people that were there and know it was real, we're now entering the point where it's all about, all people see it as is films. And
I was going to say the normalisation of battle, conflict and everything, it sort of negates everything, doesn't it? And particularly in the younger generation, they have a real difficulty, not just with the violence, but with things like, I don't know, the wonderful stuff that surgeons do and all that, because they see it, or they're just blanketed in on social media, and the reality and the virtual almost merge together, and they'd have a real difficult time in understanding what reality is,
But we just take so much for granted, the things now that like I said didn't exist or we didn't know back then. To think that when the Second World War ended, humans in space, don't be daft, or the irony is, and if there were any positives to come out of the whole mess of the war, was that it forced technology forward, but even then it was still a heck of a leap that it needed to go through, and the sad thing is, of course, is that after the war ended, all of a sudden, you just move from one issues to another, because we then jumped straight into the issue of, yes, at that point we'd ended up on the same side as Russia or the Soviet Union, but then once that was over, then of course you're arguing over the spoils, if you like, or what's left, because no one could agree about what should be done with Germany. The Soviets wanted to do it their way, and then of course what happened? We end up with the Berlin Wall going up.
Yeah.
And that rolled on for 40 years or 30, 40 years, and so it just seems that, and this is why we can't be, sane and sensible people long for a world which is going to be peaceful, but you can't be naive to think that it's ever going to happen, because there's always going to be something. And if what has been proved, I mean, at the end of the Second World War, everybody was saying, we can't allow anything like this to happen again, da 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 da, and there seemed to be real effort to make sure, but yet within months, literally, there was arguments again, and it's that reality, and that's why people may think that it's unnecessary or whatever, but you have to be, even if you don't wish to be the first one to throw the punch, you need to be able to throw a punch to defend yourself if you have to, and that's the sad reality. But that's what the countless episodes since the end of the Second World War has taught us, right from the the Falklands to the more recent ones, Afghanistan, Iraq. Unfortunately, despite what everybody wanted 80 years ago, it's
not materialised.
It hasn't and isn't going to happen. And so it's, but that's why, in a way, people need to be reminded of what war really means.
And what they gave up for everybody, really.
We're very. I mean, I know we have it on the news and everything nowadays, but they only show what they have access to. And let's face it, unless they're really brave, or journalists, and some of them do, I know, but we still don't see it's still on telly, it's still miles away, it's still detached. This was, yes, okay, well, obviously we never had fighting on the ground over here as well, but that's why Battle of Britain, and the Blitz and this, that, and the other, that's real. That's where it came, and it became real to people then. It wasn't just over the water in France, it was here on your doorstep. You could wake up in the morning and find half your street gone or something. It was, and as we know, London gets talked about the most, really, but it wasn't just there. And so that's what can happen. And of course, these days, the reality is that that also was the first time that war, because of the advances in technology, that the war directly hit the civilians, if you like, because even the First World War, as tragic and dreadful as it was, it never reached us, as it were, on our island. But so it's
strange. And I have found out about Easter. It's something to do with the reason it is late. It is to do with the lunar cycles and one annual solar event. Easter is always on the first Sunday after the first full moon that occurs in spring or vernal equinox, when day and night are equally at length. Well, that still ain't explained it to me, but never mind.
The moon has a lot of bearing on things, doesn't it? So many religions rely on the moon to determine when they're going to do stuff. It's really, really interesting. Yeah. So moving on then to a couple of things, like I said, that have popped up amongst the many things in the news, but particularly as this was related to what we were talking about last time, and the idea that we keep being sold about artificial intelligence and and the effect and how it's going to improve things for us, of which I'm very sceptical. But now they've decided, the whatever they call the aviation association, the people who decide how airports are run, basically. I can't remember what they're called. But anyway, they've now decided that they're going to scrap check-in as we know it, and passport control. So basically, rather than turning up at the airport and going to a person and who will check your bagging for you and give you your boarding pass and everything and all the rest of it, now you'll turn up and you'll have to get your face recognised by a machine, and then have your boarding pass and your passport on your phone. and then and so no documents and all. And go through it all like that. But I mean, apart from the same old thing about, well, despite what some people believe, not everybody feels able or comfortable having using a smartphone for any reason. But apart from anything else, it got me thinking. Well, hang on a minute. How good is facial technology? I mean, most of us, or a lot of us, now have some experience of it with it, using it to unlock our phones or our laptops and things these days. But I don't know how many of us even do that. But
Not me.
no, but so they've got this grand idea, but at the moment you don't have to renew your passport for 10 years. So if you happen to turn up on the day is it going to be so good that it can recognise you if you've aged like 5 years since your passport was taken?
And not that you want anybody to be injured, but say you had to have an operation, and it changed the structure of your face, or in modern society, say you'd had loads of Botox and everything and completely changed the shape of your face. How does that work then?
Well, it's good, growing a beard or having an eyelash extension for the ladies or something like that. It's going to become a lot. It's going to become a lot more expensive if you have to replace your passport every time you do it, isn't it? So
I mean, say you're 30 mid-30s, and you go away when you're in your mid-40s, and mid-30s, you'd just start to get all your wrinkles and your crow's nest lines in your eyes, but then you decided to have them all stretched out. So you went back, and they go, hang on a minute, this can't be the same person. There's no wrinkles on the forehead or around their eyes, or it's got to have its loopholes, isn't it? It's got to.
I just can't believe that it's going to be. You can just see it. I mean, it's bad. I mean, what happens now when something goes wrong at the airport?
Chaos in it.
It's just madness. So you can't tell me that we're going to go from that to suddenly just having this, machinery that's just going to make things better or smoother. I just don't believe it. And of course, what's going to happen is that means then that the poor airline staff they're going to be the next ones joining the list of the unemployed.
Exactly.
And then if something does go wrong, then you're going to see it's going to be the automated checkouts at supermarkets all over again. 5 minutes messing around and being made to look stupid by a machine, and then in the end having to wait for a human to come and bail you out anyway. So
do you presumably still have to carry a passport, or does that serve as your passport?
Well, as I understand it, and from what it says, your passport will be on your phone. So so presumably that's the same data. So presumably then rather than give your passport to a person, then will it be a person or just a machine? You just scan your phone or something. I mean, God, the queues are bad enough now with humans doing it. I mean, imagine you've just got off a long flight or something. You're trying to...
Yeah.
And again, what if you go on a holiday? What if you get sunburnt on your face? Is that going to... you're not going to be able to get home again.
Yeah, what about if you forgot to charge it and you got no charger and they go, oh, I'm sorry, I need this charged, it's not working. And there's a queue about 3 more long waiting for you to... and you're waiting to board a plane. It just baffles me.
I just, sure. I mean, it already, you can already check in online and all of that, so it's already been done to a point. And fine, each their own. If you're going somewhere on your short plane, you don't need to check in a suitcase, and you just take in your hand luggage. And of course, I get it. It makes perfect sense. Print off or download your boarding pass yourself, turn up at the airport, go straight through security. You still have to go through your passport and everything, but on you go. You save yourself the check-in queue, but replacing trying to tell us that the whole thing's going to run better with this, which, I mean, someone tell me what technology is there that we use that is flawless? There isn't any.
It's none at all.
And
I mean, there was the thing in the newspaper the other day about they were advising people not to buy anything that's been made in China because it's spying on you. So if you go and get your new air oven or whatever they call them.
Oh, the air fryer.
Yeah, it's spying on you in your kitchen while you're peeling the potatoes, isn't it? So, particularly if it's from China. So. It absolutely baffles you, and it don't bear thinking about as to what and where the information is stored on you and who uses it without your knowledge. Because everything, I mean, I won't have store cards and loyalty cards because I say, well, I don't want to give you that information. Once you've got it, you can give it to anybody. And they go, oh yeah, but you'll save £1.26. And I went, well, I'd sooner not save that and have peace of mind than thinking my information's going all around the world, you know.
Well, they say that they, as they do with when this question comes up, they say that it'll be erased and only be stored temporarily. But it, we know that it happens, that people get access to this that shouldn't have it. We know it happens. There's no point denying it. There's several examples of it that have happened, and
well, the number of times that people get cloned on social media, and then I'll get them all the time. They go, so and so wants to be friends, and I was thinking, well, actually, I'm already a friend. And you get fed up in going, I think you've been cloned. Oh yeah, I've been cloned, and then the next thing, somebody else, and you just think, if this is so easy, what on earth else can they do? From their wherever it is in the Middle East or down in Africa or something. What else do they just spend all day long? Very, very clever folks, delving into people's information.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, I don't know. They didn't sort of say how long they reckon it'll take them to roll it out, because they said the airport's going to have to spend millions on doing it, and so that's going to be. So it probably won't happen overnight, but we'll see.
And there was the ultimate thing. This I was telling you off air that I forgot what it was now. It was the Far East anyway, and they had a half marathon, and I think it was 12 human athletes and 12 robots that they'd created to run this half marathon, and it was almost like they were surprised, and they said, "Oh, but the robot was an hour and 20 minutes behind the humans," and it was like shuffling along. But they said, but this will improve. We are out now to improve the time. And in all fairness, it was like 2 hours, 20 minutes for half marathon, which ain't bad, really. It's only like an hour more. And you just think that's right. You're going to have the Olympic Games. I know there's this whole debate about, gender and that at the moment.
Yeah.
You're going to have this whole, Seb Coe will be arguing the toss that there's a robot just won the 100 metres and broke the world record.
Well, what it'll be. We'll end up having the bot Olympics, where it's all the robots competing against each other.
Yeah.
And then they'll decide that's cheaper to host because you don't have to worry about accommodation for athletes and all the rest of it. And
that's it, yeah.
And so we'll just end up having the Olympics online for everybody to watch or something.
Yeah, that's it. We'll get rid of all the Olympic athletes. Yeah. No good.
Yeah. We are a cynical pair.
I know, terrible, isn't it?
But so that's that. We'll see how that pans out. But then close to home, we've of course got it's just unbelievable that this is still rolling on. Really, the Birmingham bin saga. I mean, I guess people will be straying over into the Black Country to dump their rubbish if it goes on much longer. But it's just farcical.
It is really, and the chap who I have a cup of coffee with, he's an ex-para, fought in the Falklands, Ireland, ran everywhere. I mean, he comes from Winson Green, and he absolutely despairs, because he drives back quite often. He's quite patriotic, and he loves Brummagem, and he very often goes back and has a look at the street where he lived just for reminisce, And he said, I just cannot believe what's going on there. He says, it's just like I don't know. It's just like Armageddon, really, and it's everywhere you look. There's no discrimination at all as where they're going to put it. And of course, as you say, two things. One, the powers that be on both sides can't come to an agreement. But he said the only thing that is heartening about it is there's a community spirit building where you've got people getting rid of other people's rubbish at these drop-off centres. And he said, and he was talking to a young girl, and she took rubbish for 6 of her elderly neighbours. And he said, and that's the most heartwarming thing that's happening there, that it's almost like creating a community that wasn't there before,
But of course, alongside this, the people have, while this is going on, they haven't paused the increase in the council tax, and I mean, I can't remember what it was off the top of my head, but it was some humongous amount. But then all of this with the backdrop of the fact that certain individuals who are paid a lot more than the rubbish collectors. I keep going to say dustmen, but that's not right now, is it? But refuge collectors. Yes, that's the word. I think that's the word. Refuge collectors. But people who are paid a lot more than those guys who have led the council down the path of bankruptcy, you know, and yet, so my solution would be, or my suggestion would be, how about as a sort of form of community service for putting the council in such a mess in the first place, those people go out and collect the rubbish.
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
And never, and you take their salaries, reduce their salaries down to the same as what the refuge collectors are getting, and maybe that have, you know, that could get an agreement. But you know, it just seems that so many people, you know, don't do the job that. But it's an example of why the frontline services should always trump the back office bureaucracy, and you know, the people who are paid so much more, and apparently, you know, but make such a mess of things and cause all this chaos, you know, and no one questions their pay, you know, no. and then you've got these, and it just, if ever there was proof that certain jobs, whatever cuts are going on, certain jobs or services should be ring fenced and unable, you know, other jobs should be cut, such as management positions or, you know, and such like, before any of this, because this is the result, and it's just
and you can't see getting. What gets me as well is it, and it's a bit like the discussions that are going on about Ukraine and Russia, and Iran. They have a meeting. And then they go, oh yeah, it's going really, really well. We're going to meet in a fortnight's time on a Wednesday. And you think, well, if it's crucial,
get on with it.
Get on your backsides and meet tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just baffles me. Completely baffles me.
But you know, then that begs the question. You'd think, if these people, do they live in Birmingham? You know, because if you're being directly affected, you're thinking, no, I'm not going to sit around for another few. You know, we need to sort. You know.
Yeah, because it smells and it's.
You know, but you know, and. It's, I mean, I haven't been, but you know, I'm meant to ask one or two people who live there. Say, is it really that noticeable? Because you know, you think, well, you know, that it may be exaggerated, but I generally don't think it is.
No, John, Winston Green, John says that the streets smell, and we've had no warm weather really as such.
Well, no, not yet.
I mean, if it was the middle of summer, blimey, it would be unbelievable. The rat catching man's rubbing his hands together, isn't he? Because he's making an absolute fortune. But if there's anybody out there that either lives in Winson Green or parts of Brummagem, or works for the union or works for the council, they're quite willing to come in and just, you know, give us their fourpence as well.
But this is the thing, you know, you don't hear. It's all very well not commenting, but that doesn't help anything.
No,
you know,
solve anything.
What people want is. They call themselves leaders, or you know, they have all the things, but so it's times like these people want to see leadership, you know, and that kind of, you know, in a roundabout way relates back to war, you know, that's why he wasn't everyone's cup of tea, but what Churchill did was provide leadership, and that's what people want to see. You may not agree with everything they do and say, but they want to see that somebody is trying to fix it.
He's there as the figurehead, yeah.
You know, but at the moment, all people are getting is just lots of, oh, we're having meetings, but no one knows what's being said at these meetings. No one knows what's, and like I say, but in the meantime, the council themselves, like I said, it's not as if they've got a lot of grovelling to do to the citizens of Birmingham as it is. You know, you'd think that they would be, okay, this may be going on, but in the meantime, we will try and make amends for the mess we've made of things, and we'll do what we can to sort this out in the meantime. But they just seem to be quite happy to let it drag on, and you know, for our second city, you know, it's embarrassing. You know,
it is really. And I mean, I love Brummagem, but I wouldn't go in at the moment. Well, no way.
Oh, come back, common sense. Oh, send me a postcard from wherever you go. Tell me what it's like there, I really wanna know. And the world's gone insane ever since you disappeared. Hey, common sense, how I wish you were here. Hey, common sense, yeah, I wish you were here.
Yes, I promised it was coming back because I thought this story deserved to be discussed under the under this in this segment. So, come back, common sense. Well, what's it to do with this time? It's to do with the farce, really, that people are able to get a driving license at the age of 17, 18, and then never again have any sort of retest or check until they decide or to give up driving or someone makes them. Well, apparently this week a senior coroner from, happened to be Lancashire, but presumably it was a national sort of inquiry, has written a report to the Transport Secretary asking or recommending that drivers have compulsory eye tests every so often in order to make sure they're safe to be on the road, after several incidents in Lancashire where people were unfortunately killed by drivers who, it became apparent, couldn't see where they were going.
Blimey.
I mean, how do the things that we are so, the things that we clamp down on and the things that we ignore never cease to amaze. It's just, you alongside, for all the worry and concern about knives and guns, a car can kill people as well.
Yeah.
And for this to be ignored, for so long.
And you are stubborn, because my father-in-law was virtually blind in his left eye. Yeah, it was his left eye. And he was struggling with his right eye, really. And my daughters wouldn't be picked up from school with him because every left turn he made, he went up the curb. And they used to say, "Grandad, you've gone up the curb." No, I'm fine. And he'd go to the doctors and he'd tell them that he wasn't driving. They go for a checkup. Is everything all right? Is your eyesight? Yeah. Do you drive? No, I don't drive. And he was driving. So how many people, of that age, and I'm of that age really, aren't capable of driving, really?
But the thing is, as I understand, if I think back to, the days when I could see, which was only out of one eye, I remember I didn't realise, because you don't. How can you possibly know? Because you're not in someone else's head, so you don't necessarily remember what being able to see fully 20/20 is, and if it's a gradual decline, then you don't necessarily realise. I get that, but so therefore, but it shouldn't be in people's hands to decide. It should just be simple, run of the mill for everyone's safety and reassurance. Every so many years, you have to be retested. You have eyesight tests for all sorts of other reasons. So an eyesight test, and not just that, of course, because the roads, even I know, as someone who doesn't drive, the roads are more mental now than they were when most of these people passed their tests.
Yeah.
So, cars are changing, have changed, roads have changed, and your body's changed. So it's just not. It's perfectly reasonable and sensible, surely, to have it as the law that in order to stay on the road, for your safety first and foremost, and anyone else's, that you have to be rechecked and re-examined every so often. And
yeah, it baffles me. You get, you sit, you have tiny little, fairly weak, elderly ladies and men that are driving massive 4x4s, can hardly get down from the seat, and you just think, and then they're like, get the sticks out, and you just think, how on earth can you control? How on earth can you react? Not necessarily you can drive, but how can you react?
But that's the point, isn't it? It's not about can you get in and steer the thing. It's you have no control over what's going to happen around you.
No.
And if you don't see it coming, for number one, then that's going to obviously mean you can't. We've all seen examples. Kids going around with their headphones on these days, so they don't even hear you coming.
Electric cars, you can't hear them.
It's if anything, the possibilities for accidents has gone up, not down.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have to be, your reactions, it's no one's fault. As people who have played football, we know what it's like when we think, God, I used to be able to get there quicker, but I can't get there now. It's just it's just a fact of life. It's no one's fault, but it's being realistic and not. You just cannot react. You have to be able to react quickly, because otherwise it can be disastrous.
Did the coroner give a length of time or an age when it should happen, or just periodically through your driving life?
They didn't give specific. They basically said periodically through. I think the instance in questions were involving people over the age of 70.
Yeah.
So that sort of bracket. And like I say, it was apparently involving several incidents, so presumably different ages. But it didn't go into any more specifics. But yeah, you know, it of all the things that we talk about, it's surely way overdue that it needs to be done for so many reasons.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think, I mean, if I was honest, I'm a worse driver than I was when I started. I wouldn't pass the test now. Probably wouldn't pass a lot of the faculties in the test. You know, there's certain things you have to go through. But you carry on driving because you think, well, I better not go for a test in case they take my licence off me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, and I get it. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, and I'm sure it's a fear thing. You know, as someone who's never had the luxury of being able to drive, I can imagine what a fear or how daunting it is for somebody that thinks, blimey, you know. That means like people say to me, I can't imagine
not being able to drive.
So it's a big thing to give up, you know. I get it, but in the end, so that's why, like I say, it needs to be taken out of people's hands and made that that you've got no choice, you know. You may not like it, but in the end, if it saves your life and someone else's, it's got to be the right thing to do, surely.
Yeah, you got about a minute and a half.
Yeah,
so.
Well, so there we go. Cram quite a lot into that hour, but we.
If they want to get in touch, just billy.spakeman.blackcountryradio.co.uk, and you can have a moan or wherever, or you can bring something up that you want us to talk about.
Well, I keep saying, you know, do you agree? We're talking rubbish. Tell us, you know, we can keep bouncing things around, but it's it's always better to have someone else's opinion to talk about as well. So, but so get in touch, tell us, and don't forget you can keep up with the podcast as well, A Blind Insight, on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and also on YouTube now as well, if that's your chosen platform. We'll see you next time.